Welcome to On Your Terms Live. I'm Ann Franzese Bourne. I'm an executive coach and performance strategist, and I work with business owners and leaders who have built something real and are figuring out what the next stage actually asks of them. Most business content tells you what to do. This show goes somewhere else, into how you think, what you believe about yourself, and the invisible rules you're operating by without realizing it, because a business grows to the edge of its leaders' thinking. Today, I want to talk about something almost nobody warns you about when you become the person everyone comes to. There's a client I've been thinking about a lot lately. She runs a healthcare services company. 40 employees, a board, a peer network, and family who loves her. And she told me there wasn't one person in her life she could say the real thing to. Now, when people talk about leadership being lonely, they usually mean something about having fewer friends or not being invited to lunch anymore. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is quieter. And in my experience, it's a lot more expensive. Let me tell you about Elena. Her team couldn't hear her uncertainty. Not because they didn't care, but because whatever she felt, they absorbed. If she was unsure, they got unsure. So she stopped being unsure out loud. Her board couldn't hear her doubt, because doubt from the CEO isn't a feeling to a board. It's data, and they recalibrate on it. Her peers were also, in ways nobody ever said out loud, her competitors. There was always a slight edge to those conversations, a version of herself she presented. And then there was her family. Her family loved her too much to hear how heavy it actually was. Every time she started to say it, she watched them get worried. And then she found herself managing their worry instead of processing her own. So she carried it, all of it, alone, in a room absolutely full of people. Here's what I've come to understand about why this happens. The higher you go, the fewer places there are to think out loud. And it isn't because people stop caring about you. It's because what you say starts to carry weight you never asked it to carry. Think about it this way. Early in your career, you can say, "I'm not sure about this," and it's just a sentence. It's a normal thing a person says on a Tuesday. Nobody restructures their week around it. But when you're leading 40 people, that exact same sentence lands in the room like a verdict. Your uncertainty becomes their uncertainty. Your doubt becomes their doubt. Your thinking out loud becomes their marching orders. And so you learn, without ever consciously deciding to stop saying it. Now here's the part that costs the most, and this is the part I really want you to sit with. You don't just stop saying it to them. You gradually stop saying it to yourself, because thinking honestly requires somewhere for the thought to land. It requires somewhere to be unfinished. And when there's nowhere safe to put an unfinished thought, the thought never actually gets finished. It just circles, over and over, never resolving, never leaving. Elena wasn't short on answers. She was short on a place to think. So when we started working together, I asked her something she hadn't been asked in a long time. I asked, "What do you actually think about this? Not what you're going to tell them. What do you think?" And she started to answer. Then she stopped. Then she started again. It took her close to 10 minutes to get to something that was actually true. And when she got there, she looked genuinely surprised. She said, "I don't think I've asked myself that in about 2 years." I want to be really clear about something. That is not a personal failing. That is not Elena being bad at self-reflection. That's what happens when every single thought you have gets translated into how it will land before it's even finished forming. You lose access to the raw, unedited version, the version that's actually yours. And here's why that matters practically, not just emotionally. Leaders make their worst decisions from the translated version, because the translated version isn't really their thinking anymore. It's their thinking after it's already been managed for an audience. It's been softened or hardened or reshaped to land a certain way. And by the time it comes out of your mouth, you've lost the thing that made your judgment worth having in the first place. So what actually helps here? Most leaders try to solve this by adding more people, more networking, more peer groups, another advisor, another mastermind. And sometimes that genuinely helps. I'm not going to tell you those things don't matter, because they do. But very often it doesn't touch the real problem. Because the problem was never a shortage of people. The problem is a shortage of places where you're allowed to be unfinished, uncertain, not yet sure, working something out rather than presenting a conclusion. That's a completely different thing than company. So here's what Elena started doing. And it's simple enough that you could try it this week, before anything significant, before a hard conversation, before a real decision, before a meeting that matters. She took 5 minutes, not to prepare or to rehearse, just to answer 3 questions honestly, for herself, with no audience. The first question: what do I actually think about this before I know what anyone else thinks? That one is harder than it sounds. Most leaders have been reading the room for so long that their own position forms in response to other people rather than ahead of them. So you have to go looking for it. The second question: what am I afraid of here that I haven't said out loud? Unnamed fear shapes decisions invisibly. Naming it doesn't make it go away, but it does let you look at it and ask whether it's actually real, or whether it's a story you've been carrying. And the third question, which is the one that usually gets to the truth fastest: what would I say if I knew it wouldn't be repeated? That question removes the audience entirely, and what comes out is almost always closer to the truth than anything you'd planned to say. Elena did that for a couple of months, and her leadership team started noticing something they couldn't quite put a name to. She wasn't more decisive. Exactly. That's not how they described it. They said she seemed more present, more settled. The way I'd put it is that it started to feel like there was a person in the room, instead of a role. So here's what I want to leave you with. If something in this landed, I don't think what you need is another advisor. I don't think you need a bigger network. I think you need somewhere to think. Somewhere you can be unfinished before you have to be certain. Somewhere the thought can land. And if you don't have that yet, that's worth taking seriously. Not because something's wrong with you, because it's the thing that quietly determines the quality of everything you decide. Thank you for spending this time with me. If something in today's episode challenged how you were thinking about it, that's the point. You can find everything I do at journeytosuccess.me. That's journey to success.me. I'm Ann Franzese Bourne. This has been On Your Terms Live. Until next time, keep thinking, keep growing, and keep building your life on your terms.